I love Dhurandhar 2 more than Dhurandhar 1. Let's find out why. Hi and welcome to my channel. My name is Shinu. Now we have heard a lot of talk about Dhurandhar Part 1, that it was technically superior, and the songs in Dhurandhar 2 is not as catchy as the first edition. But when I watched the movie, I absolutely loved it. The songs, the background music, everything that was fetching a lot of flack from the critics. So I decided to dig deeper to find out if that really was the case. To start off, here is a quick trivia for you. The total length of the soundtrack in Dhurandhar Part 1 was 38 minutes 54 seconds. But get this, the soundtrack in Dhurandhar Part 2 is 1 hour 4 minutes and 17 seconds. This movie may not be as big on the technical side as the movie critics on YouTube claim, but it definitely takes you on an emotional roller coaster. And it's not just the soundtrack alone, the background music is something else entirely. Part 1 had the who's who of the industry, names like Hanuman Kind, Diljit Dosanjh, Arijit Singh and Sonu Nigam. And yes, the songs were crazy good. But is Part 2 really not up to the mark as described by online critics? I beg to differ. For me, the soundtrack stands out more than Part 1. And to make my point, I need to take you down the storyline of the movie. The movie starts with Jaskeerat's friend taking a photograph of him with his family, his father, mother and 2 sisters. And then the story shows what he goes through, how he massacres 12 people who killed his father, his sister and took his other sister hostage. He is failed by the system and is given a death sentence, only to find himself saved by the same system and sent to Pakistan. Now this family photograph is seen again in his hand while he is in Pakistan as a spy. He takes one last look before burning it. Now we know the story, how he eliminates the threat to India one after the other. And now if this was a regular movie, it would have ended with the killing of Major Iqbal. However, the movie goes on for another 40 minutes after this. And that is where the humane touch is brought to the character. We are seeing the entire story of Dhurandhar from the perspective of Hamza, and I think it would have been shallow if the movie ended with Major Iqbal's death. Because as audience, we needed a closure from Hamza's perspective. He had a family in India, but due to circumstances, he becomes an undercover spy. He builds a new life in Pakistan and we see the vulnerabilities that he faces, fearing that any time his cover could be blown. Now he has a wife and a son there. And finally, when he eliminates Major Iqbal, we see one of the most emotional scenes of the movie. And this scene is when his wife Yelena utters his real name for the first time, and that too over a phone call. He came to Pakistan empty-handed with just a photograph of his family, and he leaves with another photograph, his wife, son and himself. And once he's back in India, we see him holding the photograph in his hand, shedding tears and finally burning it. He then decides to go back and see his family in Punjab, who by now have moved on and are happy, and looks at the house where his mother, his sister and her children are. He pauses, he retrospects. He looks back at the road he took to come back home and realizes it is best that he doesn't meet his family. And this is such a beautiful way to conclude a story. This humane treatment of Ranveer's character makes me love Dhurandhar Part 2 more than Part 1. But let's talk about Shashwat, who understood the assignment, understood the emotional requirement in this movie and brought absolute gems. As I mentioned, the movie starts with a high-octane massacre scene, which is perfectly justified by the song Aari Aari. Such a high-energy track. Then there is another song called Destiny Mannat Kya. It's a gem based on Rag Darbari. It is such a blend of Hindustani classical with modern hip-hop and rap. It still sounds melancholic even with the modern treatment. Vari Jawa is another song that is played when he becomes the kingpin of Lyari. It elevates the overall scene of the movie where he exerts his ultimate dominance. Jai Sajna is played during Rahman Dakat's funeral. It brings the tension and the loss. Satinder Sartaj's vocals add the much required melancholy. And then there is Main Aur Tu, played during the montage where Hamza eliminates threats, especially the killing of the guy who said, "Pados mein hi rehte hain." Phir Se, one of the absolute gems, is played when he goes back to meet his family and is torn between seeing them or letting them move on. And I cannot talk enough about this song, Aakhri Ishq. Man, this heart-wrenching song is played when he calls his wife after the mission is over and tells her his real name. This scene really made me teary. So the point that I'm making is that the songs are placed aptly in the movie and they don't deserve the kind of backlash that it received. The reviews said that the soundtrack was an underwhelming aspect, but I vehemently disagree. You have an hour-plus long soundtrack and it has been used perfectly. Part 1 was good, but part 2 for me is darker, technically superior in its layering, and provides the somber, melancholic feel this story required as Jaskeerat's life unfolds. This is the story of a man who lost everything, was on a death row, became the most powerful person in Aari, but then lost everything again for the commitment he made to his motherland. And the soundtrack justifies this movie. Well, that was my take on Dhurandhar 2 soundtrack. Please post your opinion in the comments down below. Tell me what you think and if you would like an in-depth analysis of a song, and I'll see you in the next one.